Buddy, this is Crazy Trucker, and we have a special guest in the building, Travis. He's a friend, he's a gamer, he's also a weed grower, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit about his life and what's going on with him and how he got to where he's at, and we'll just go from there. So, Travis, what's up, buddy?
How's it going, man? I'm still
Oh
trying
man,
to get into the broadcast. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
okay.
Does the broadcast has stopped? We got that same
Oh,
error.
don't worry about that. It's
All
on,
right.
it's on.
All right. Good deal. Thanks,
So,
man. Honored to be here.
I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no
So
problem.
let me ask you, where were you born at?
I was born here in Monroe, Michigan.
Right,
Spent the majority of my life here.
right.
Pretty crappy
And
town.
wow, there's no endorsement there, huh?
No, no, no. If you look on YouTube, Monroe, Michigan, some of the strange shit you'll see, you'll be like, whoa, I'm never going there. That place is fucked up. We're right in the middle between Toledo, Ohio, and Detroit, Michigan. So everybody that's got warrants from Lucas County comes here, and everybody that's got warrants from Wayne County comes here. So we get the lovely in-betweens.
Well, nice.
Yeah.
So at what age did you first smoke weed?
I was about 12 years old. When I
Wow,
was
that
about
young.
11, yeah, when I was about 11, I had a full-grown man put a 44 in my face, and he was going to shoot me, and some other people stopped him. And I just figured, after that episode, if I was old enough to die, I'm old enough to try everything else in life. Because I
Wow.
might not see 12, so I better try it while I'm 11.
So
I
did you
did
go to
everything.
yeah, did you
Drank,
go
smoked.
after you tried that, did you know you, how were you in school?
Oh, I was never good in school. Never.
No,
I was,
me neither.
yeah, I was always awkward, didn't fit in, didn't
Yeah.
like all the kids. Most of the teachers I bumped heads with. I didn't like any of the teachers hardly.
Yeah.
The
Did-
the very first day of first grade, I walked in and the teacher's calling my name, and finally, and she's looking right at me, and I'm not answering her, and finally the whole class is staring at me, and getting really mad,
mhm.
and she says, at that time my name was Matt Lentz, because I was in an adopted family,
Right.
and she asked me like 5, 6 times, "Are you Matt Lentz?" And finally I stood up and I said, "I am Matt Lentz, and I don't like you one damn bit, and I'm going home." So I went over and grabbed my coat and walked home.
Wow, just walked right out, huh?
Just walked right the fuck out of there. Walked home. Yep. So the next day I had a new teacher. They said, "No, this ain't gonna work." Can you imagine her going home that night and telling her husband, "Man, I had the most fucked up thing happen today. Some little kid checked me and walked out. I don't even know what to do."
Yeah, the kind of same here. I hated school. I didn't get
I had the
along the whole thing.
I had the weirdest kindergarten teacher too. She would read us stories. No, maybe it was like third grade. Yeah, it was like third grade. The next year, our teacher always wore a dress, and she always wore nylons, and she never wore anything else underneath. So I was always like in the front row. Um, I don't remember any of the stories, but I certainly know what her vagina looked like.
Oh, damn.
And I wasn't the only one, because later in life I talked to some of the other kids that were in there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, everybody knew that. We all knew what her vagina looked like." Every kid in there knew what a vagina was, thanks to her. And I think she ended up getting fired for that shit or something. Mrs. Burkhart. Oh, God bless her.
Oh, jeez.
Mm. Yeah, I have many fond memories of stories where I don't remember the story.
So
But
is
you
hey,
don't
this
have
your
this weed
spot?
place. No,
I think I do.
where's yours at?
It
You got
should
one all
be.
the way up north?
It should be here. This should be the same place. You're in my CEO, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
this
I
ain't it.
should be able to go in there. I don't know why. Motorcycle
Oh, you
club.
need
That's why.
motorcycle club. Yeah, yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
okay. Let me get rid of this.
That's what it is. Yeah, so busy
So,
sucking up all your RP, and you don't want smoke.
let's see. Okay, here we go. Um, okay, I'll invite you. So, what kind of jobs did you have, like, as you got older?
Oh man, well, like I said, I was adopted, so when I was about fourth grade, some woman came up to me, and her daughter was in my class, and this woman never spoke. She was really weird, and I always felt like she was staring at me. I felt really awkward around her because she was
Mm,
kind of creepy. And then finally, one time, we were like in the classroom and we're all alone. The teacher had stepped out for a minute, all the other students had stepped out. For some reason, I was still there, and for some reason, she was still there.
mm.
And she came over to me, and it was the first time she ever heard her spoke ever. And she said, "You're Matt Lentz, right?" I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "And your parents are Gary and Karen?" I'm like, "Yeah." Now I'm getting really weirded out because this woman never talks. And she says, "Are you adopted?" And I said, "Yeah." And she kind of smiled. She says, "Well, I knew you were adopted, but I didn't know if you knew."
Oh,
I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Well, I live across the street from the school here." He says, "And I'm Jennifer's mom, your schoolmate." She said, "If you ever want to talk about your real family, you just come on over there and talk to me. I'll tell you whatever you want to know."
hmm.
And I was just blown away, you know what I mean? Because nobody had ever said anything about my real family. They just always avoided it, and said they didn't know anything and avoided, talking about it in any place.
Mm.
And here, this woman had some information. So at a later date, I took her up on that and I knocked on her door. And she told me that my grandparents on my mom's side used to live next door to her. And when I was born and when I was an infant, she used to watch me. And I used to play together with this girl, Jennifer, that's now in my fourth grade class. And I'm like, wow,
Did you
that's,
recognize
wow.
her? I mean, did you know this?
Oh,
You...
no, 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 no. I was just a little baby. You know what I mean?
Oh,
I was
okay.
still a tit sucker. But she recognized me. Imagine that, caring for a baby, and then you see that same baby when they're in the fourth grade, and you're like, I know this kid. You know what I mean? And that's, she was in a very difficult position to say something or keep her mouth shut. And for
Mm.
like almost an entire year, she didn't say nothing. But then finally her conscience gave way and she had to say something. And I'm
Uh,
glad she did because that woman completely changed my life. If
wow.
it wasn't for her, I never would have been able to track my mom down. I never would have met my mom.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I wouldn't know anything at all about my family or my heritage. And it's all because one woman made the right choice one day. You know what I mean? Sometimes you think, oh, it's a kid. It doesn't matter if they know the truth or not. But she did the right thing and it completely altered my entire life.
Wow.
You know, because of her, I ended up tracking my mom down to Fort Worth. And I ended up at a later date finding out the reason she was in Fort Worth is because she was Michigan's longest escaped female fugitive on the run at the time.
Oh,
She
wow.
had 26 years on the run for robbing a bank here in Monroe.
Oh, wow.
And that was a pretty legendary story, too. She got away with about 60 grand back in
That's a lot.
72 or so.
Yeah, that's a lot
Yeah,
of money back then.
yeah.
So,
And
go ahead.
she took part of the money and she walked right back into the fucking bank and put it in the bank in my name. Her
Oh,
name and
wow.
my name. Yeah, and it sat there for like 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's crazy. So,
yeah,
let
she
me
was a
ask you,
gangster.
what, yeah, it's definitely gangster. Uh, so, Lentz, is that a Jewish name?
Yeah, Kurtz and Lentz was the adopted family
Hmm.
that
Yeah. My
I was
wife's
with.
Jewish, that's why I asked.
Oh, yeah, they were German and Jewish, and
Yeah, yeah. So, get into the whole weed thing. Like, how did that happen?
uh, well, I spent some time here. We got like 2 acres of woods behind us, and I was just always interested in anything that was illegal or forbidden. So I was
Yeah.
always into guns and silencers, doing anything you're not supposed to do. And, at a younger age, I was running guns between Texas and Michigan here. I was an armed guard down there for like 9 years, and we just had literally trunkfuls of guns, and we knew they were stolen. We knew they were used in murders and shit. You know
Oh
what I mean?
Lord, don't even say that.
Oh yeah, and so we would gather up these guns from my security business, and I would literally drive them from Fort Worth all the way up to here to
Yeah,
Mount Clemens.
I don't know the statute of limitations on things, but I don't think we
Ah,
should
it's
talk
done.
about that.
It's done. It's done. It's more than 15
Yeah,
years. I'm good.
I'd hate for this video, to go viral and then, something bad happen.
Well,
You
they'd
know?
have to prove that.
Yeah, true, but
They'd have to prove it.
the thing is when you say, speaking on these things, it's like, you know what I mean? Like this is evidence right here, can be used
Yeah,
against you.
it could. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
please don't. This is all speculation. Nobody.
No,
This is not
I won't talk about
allegedly,
anything. Yeah,
allegedly. But
I
the
won't talk
whole,
about anything that's still
yeah,
under
yeah,
limitations.
yeah. So, so the
But
weed. These
that's
are
done.
these are nice plants, by the way. So,
Yeah,
what,
no,
so
I don't
what,
care for the lighting.
what got you in the weed though? Like, what got you to say,
Just
I'm gonna grow this and I'm gonna make it a business?
Well, when I first moved to Fort Worth to look for my mom, I spent like almost every day in the library. And of course, when you got free reign in a library, you're going to look up everything you can think of that you're not supposed to know about.
Right.
And there was just a massive amount of information about marijuana. So I
Right.
studied it and I learned it, and I didn't put it into practice, of course, but it was an interesting subject.
Right.
And then
I think we
a
all
couple
had High
years,
Times magazine.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I got into a position where I moved into a haunted house, and it had free electricity, it had free gas, it had free water, and I was getting free rent. So, what else am I gonna do? Fuck, let's grow some weed. You know, what do you mean I got free electricity? Seriously? Get the fuck out of here.
So when
So,
they made it legal, when
not
did
down
they?
there.
Oh, in Fort. You're talking about Fort Worth.
Yeah, in Fort Worth. Yeah, I started growing in Fort Worth. I had a couple big gardens, but I was never able to get to the flowering aspect. Seemed like every time I just got to the flowering part, with some bump in the road would happen, and we'd have to move the garden.
Right.
Or the cops would come. I had a lot of visits from the cops. That was always a big issue.
So when did it we become legal where you live at now?
About 8, 9 years ago here in Michigan, they had the medical card system, and then just like 2 years ago, they went to full recreational.
Wow.
Yeah, big change.
So then you made it a business, and then how do you like what get seeds and
Well,
how do you
it's always
is
been a hobby, and when my parents moved out of this property here, that's when I started having, a couple plants out back, and just see how it goes every year. And at first, we were just growing some local seeds that we got from, bags we bought. And most of those were long flower,
what's the
3 months
difference
flowering.
between what
Well,
long
up
flower?
here in
That's a
Michigan,
short flower. I don't know
yeah,
know
the
anything about
different
it.
strains flower at different rates. If you have a really fast strain, it's going to flower in 8 or 9 weeks. So being at this northern latitude, we always want the shit to finish as early as we can. Otherwise you run out of season and it's just swamp. And we had a lot of that last year. The humidity was just too high. Fucked up a lot of people's gardens. That's every year. So unless you can control the humidity, it's hit or miss. You might have some fantastic shit. You might have some decent stuff. You might have a huge crop. You might not. With the longer flowers, you have the benefit that when the weather goes bad, you bring them indoors. But the problem is you're spending a third more on lighting, a third more on nutrients, and a third of your time, which doesn't work out. You know, you're better going with the 8 week flower and then just starting over, getting a new one going. So that's what I look for.
So, I mean, I was always like, just a smoker, never a grower, and then sometimes, maybe you throw a couple of seeds here and there just to see what would happen, and never got
Yeah,
into it like that. But to cultivate it on a large scale, obviously it's very profitable, you know,
can
um,
be
yeah. So
very
I'm
dangerous
sure
too.
Well, yeah, of course, there's always somebody looking to jack you over some shit, you know?
Well, you think about what a human life is worth. If I'm running a small indoor garden, your crops are about 20,000, and there are people there that would kill you for that 20,000.
Oh, they'll kill you
You
for a
know,
lot less.
oh yeah, and that's one-time crop. You better not have two or three laying around.
Hmm. Wow.
In my scale of things, I know that garden that I've built in the back can easily produce 100 pounds naturally. Now,
Hmm.
if I was to seal it up and pump it full of CO2, easily 150.
Hmm.
You know, just doing the same thing that I'm doing now. But that's way past what anybody's life is worth. So
Yeah.
you gotta always be on your toes. You better be quick to draw, because if you hesitate, you won't be here tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm gonna go over here to this to the field over here. There's a field nearby.
Yeah, that's where the coppers spawn, choppers spawn. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real interesting. So, but not to leave this topic, we'll get back to it, but you own or have three raccoons, right?
Yeah, I do. They own
Tell
me, I
tell
think.
us how you got these little guys. And they're cute, by the way. Fuck, they are cute as
Thanks.
shit.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Like I would
Um,
want, like you look at them like you want to grab one and hug it, but like you think about how sharp their teeth are and their claws, and they'll jack your ass up. Like you know what I mean? They
oh, they would let you.
obviously they love you. You know what I mean? They know
Oh
who their
yeah.
daddy is. But tell
Oh
us
yeah.
how that all happened, man. That's pretty cool.
Well, in the grow room there, I was in the wintertime. I was getting stuff taken care of. Or no, it was springtime. That's right. It was springtime. We're doing clones, and we kept hearing what I thought was baby birds, and we hadn't had the heavy duty lighting on, so the ventilation was turned off, and it really sounded like they were in the ventilation. So we didn't turn anything on because we don't want to blend up baby birds.
Yeah, yeah.
And I figure, okay, 3 4 days they've been crying now. Maybe something happened to their mom. It gets close to 5 or 6 days, and I'm like, man, I gotta intervene. Because they're not coming out, and mom's not coming back. Something's wrong.
Mhm.
So I crawl all the way up in the attic and come to find out it was not baby birds, it was baby raccoons. And they were indeed screaming for their mom. And she was at the point where, I'm done feeding you, you need to come out and eat something. And they're like, screw you.
They didn't want to leave, huh? It's
Well,
warm in
they
here.
really couldn't. Yeah, they really couldn't, because it's up in the attic, and the way she was getting in and out, they couldn't do that. If they would have got out, they would have probably died from the fall, or
Oh wow. How
or
high
they
up were
would have
they? Were like
stamped in.
a two-story, one
Oh,
story?
oh, it's about 13 feet.
Oh, okay. Nice little drop.
So if it, yeah, they would have come out of there. That could have hurt or killed one of them.
So, did you name these things?
Yeah.
I call them things,
I actually
but they're critters. They're little cute little guys. I mean,
I let
no
my girls
offense.
name them, and
They're
the
females. They're
smallest
all
one.
females.
No, they're all males.
Okay.
The biggest one is now Malcolm, and he started off being the one in the middle. He was the middle-sized one.
Malcolm in the middle. Is that why you
Yeah,
named
so
it?
that's how he got his name, because he was the middle-sized one, and we couldn't think of a name.
uh,
Um, when they started off, when they were little pups, Rigby was the small one. He was the runt,
uh,
and then Remy was the big fat one. But then they kind of switched places, where Malcolm outgrew Remy. He just got a little bigger, and Malcolm's a little meaner than the other ones. He's a little more wild. He likes to fight a little. Like, he'll climb up your leg, get right in your face, and then give you some teeth. Like, want to fight? And then you give him a kiss on the nose, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, stop it! I want to fight."
oh shit. They're so
Yeah. So
cute.
he's trying to be a big coon. They sleep next to me every night. They're adorable. They sleep in my sleeping bag, or
Yeah,
on
we,
my
we
head, or
when we're gaming, we always like hear them in the background every now and then. Especially if you put your controller down, they grab the mic and you can hear them like just chewing on shit.
the
Like there they
worst is
go
their
again.
yeah. The worst is they steal my pipe, or God forbid you crack a beer. Anything enjoyable like that. They're on a cup of coffee. They love espresso. I don't know why.
Well, they
It
ruined your
is.
PlayStation
They did, yeah. They drug
and
the whole carafe, the whole pot across the PlayStation, dumping it all over the place.
just killed
They're
it, and
trying to,
you were offline for a good bit because of it.
yeah. Well, even if I would have had a PlayStation, during trimming season, I was just so busy I wouldn't have. I mean, I literally was going to bed at 6 and 7 o'clock in the evening, because I'm getting up at 5.
Where did I put the helicopter at? Okay, it's back over here.
We don't need no stinking chopper.
So getting back to the wheat thing, so you use special kind of dirt, or you grow it in the ground, like how
I
does?
use grow bags and 5-gallon buckets. Normally 5-gallon buckets for the majority of the life, and then for the larger plants, I use grow bags. The bags are about 140 gallons. They start off as 100 gallon, and then I put a insulator sleeve in it that raises it up. That keeps
Uh,
the sun from beating on the bag, and keeps the temperature stable.
okay. So I mean, do you add like I guess nutrients and stuff? Like I mean, I'm thinking
Oh
like
yeah.
Miracle Grow. I don't know.
Oh no, don't ever say that again. We don't endorse any Miracle Grow ever for anything ever.
Really, is it that
Miracle
bad?
Mer, Miracle Grow is the shittiest fertilizer on the planet. Don't ever use it for anything.
Really?
It, oh yeah, if
Why?
I hear
Why
the
is it?
word,
Go ahead.
it's cheap. It's just cheap, and it's really acidic. It'll burn the shit out of your plants. Anytime you use Miracle Grow, you have to use a ton of agricultural lime. It's just,
Really?
yeah, it's rot gut. It's like drinking Mad Dog 2020 when, you got a
Yeah.
single malt scotch in the cabinet.
Wow. I always, everybody's under the impression that it's this great thing to use for growing
Well,
anything.
if you want to spray that shit on your lawn or the outdoor plants, go ahead, but I would never, ever use that in the garden. I would piss on my plants before I'd use Miracle Grow.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
that
interesting
shit's
to know.
terrible. It's terrible.
So, I mean, can I ask like how big of a plot of land are you using to grow all
Um,
this?
the front cleared out part is about 2 acres, and then we got about 2 acres of woods behind us. And right in the middle of that, I've got a garden that's 30 feet wide and 80 feet long, and I grow in about 30 by 60. And right now, it's just like a tent canopy system.
Mm,
Around August, we put up some tarps that cover the whole garden, but that's not really effective for keeping the humidity down like what we need. So this year, we're going to start looking into putting up some braces and sealing the garden so that we can actually pump it full of CO2, and we can get all the humidity out so that the plants are happier and get a better quality product. We got the quantity down with no problem. We can grow over 100 pounds, no problem, easily.
so kind of
We're
like a
just,
greenhouse you want to make, right?
yeah, we're going to put a hard top on it and seal it up eventually. I don't know how much of that I'm going to get done this year, but that's the goal that I work for every year, is try and make the outdoor weed more like the indoor weed. Once we get a couple of cargo boxes in here and get everything set up, like one will be a cloning area and one will be the intermediate veg area. And then
Mm,
what I would like to do is use that 30-foot by 80-foot garden outdoors just for flowering. And I could probably use it 5 times a year for flowering. We'd put some propane heaters in there, and of course, when you burn propane, that produces CO2 that the plants breathe in. So your heat source is also, your uh, life source for their breathing.
yeah.
And if I could do that, and if I could just run the outdoor garden as a flowering room, then you're looking at about 400 pounds a year, easily. Because now you can do 5 runs, and if it's 75, 100 pounds per run, shit.
Yeah, that's but it's a gamble. Like, every year, like you don't know what you're gonna yield from it all. It's not always
Well,
guaranteed.
it's pretty much guaranteed because of the strains that I grow by. I know as like a point of reference, if I grow a really good grow, the best results I've had with some outdoor conditions and very little fertilizer. Like one year I spent $44 on fertilizer. I bought 4 containers for $11 each. That's all I spent. I had 16 5-gallon buckets, and it was a little over 10 pounds. So that's 8 ounces for a 5-gallon bucket, and you got 4 gallons of dirt in that bucket. So to get 8 ounces off of 4 gallons of dirt, that's pretty fucking good, especially if you don't have any fertilizer. You know, if you just got shitty fertilizer that you're using from Lowe's or something, that's amazing
Right.
results. So I kind of use that as a benchmark. You know, that year, if I gave somebody an ounce of weed, and if they didn't pay me back, then I lost 23 cents. You know,
23 cents. But I mean,
23 cents.
you didn't make anything. Like if you lose a crop, you make nothing. Like you lose all that
Oh
labor.
yeah, I totaled up all my losses one year because I've had the cops here so many times. It's not funny, and
Oh
I've been
wow.
ripped off once or twice. You know, there's been a couple of close friends that got over on me,
Yeah.
but I totaled up all my losses, and it was about $480,000.
Holy moly.
Yeah,
That's not
because typically the police would come in and they would just destroy everything, cut everything down, throw it in a pile. And when they were done cutting everything down, then they would come over to you and they'd look at you and they'd say, "Oh, by the way, do you have a medical card?"
Good to see you, boss.
You know, just being a smartass.
wow. And all that for nothing. Like it just goes
Yeah,
down the
you know,
drain.
you can't sue them, you know, because you can't say, you know, oh, well, that was a $70,000 crop, you know.
Yeah. That's
You don't want to
crazy.
go into court and say that because they're going to say, well, how many crops have you had before and why didn't you pay taxes?
Wow. That kind of sucks, man. I mean, like
Yeah,
you're always it's always a gamble. You never know
yeah.
what's going to happen. But I
Well,
mean, if
even if
it's
somebody
legal,
was going to rip you off, you know, they know that more than likely they can break into your place and you're not going to call the cops. Because that's the last thing you want is to fucking call the cops, you know, have them tromping through your shit after, you know, the rip off, you know, or attempted rip off.
but it's legal there, so it's not, you know what I mean?
It
Like
is.
you're not doing anything illegal. You're just doing what
Well,
the
see, that's the
law
catch.
allows.
That's the catch. If you are a grower, if you are growing weed, you have an illegal garden. Hands down, 100%. Every garden out there is illegal in one aspect or another.
So you have
Totally
to have
lose.
licenses and all that stuff to
No,
sell.
no, it's just the logistics of it. You know, like here, you can walk around the streets with 2.5 ounces of weed on your person at all times. Totally legal. You can have 10.5 ounces at your home. Now you ask yourself the question, okay, well, I'm going to start up a little grow in my closet. You know, I'm not going to go over my 12 plants. I'm going to do everything legal. Now, let's say those plants produce 3 ounces apiece. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to cut one plant or less and hang it and dry it one at a time. Because as soon as you cut the plant from the dirt, it's considered product. It's no
Uh,
longer a plant.
so that's the
So if
loophole.
right, if the cops were to walk in the day that you cut that plant down, they're going to weigh the stems. They're going to hopefully no seeds, but if there's seeds, they're going to weigh the seeds, which are extremely heavy. You know, if you get just say like a dozen seeds in your bag, that could be an eighth of weed. That's extremely heavy.
Wow.
So if you have, let's say you're growing a mother plant and you just cut it down, and the day you cut it down, the cops visit, they're going to take that whole mother plant. Or what they're also notorious for is they will rip the plant out of the ground and they will throw the entire thing on the scale, dirt and all. So you're weighing the root ball, you're weighing the wet dirt, you're weighing all the water contained in there, you're weighing all the seeds, you're weighing all the stalk, you know, all the leaf material that you wouldn't normally use. You know what I mean? They're weighing all of that and saying,
Everything.
"Oh, yeah." He's like,
And
"Oh, he's
probably
way
some
over.
dirt
He's got
too on top of that.
absolutely." I have had the police absolutely grab like a 2-gallon pot full of dirt and throw it right on the scale with the weed. And they're like, oh, that plant's 4 pounds. Well, yeah,
Wow.
it's four, you know.
Pounds of
They've done
dirt.
that so many times. Yeah, they weigh the dirt, they weigh the seeds, they weigh everything. Just like if they're scraping your tray, for evidence. One time I went to jail for a tenth of a gram. Now, a gram is a very small joint. So imagine a tenth of a gram of
Wow,
marijuana dust.
that's that's a roach.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
even.
No, that's not even a roach. They scraped my
Yeah.
tray, dude. They literally scraped my tray, got some dust off my tray, and I went to jail.
Shit, man. So I mean, what keeps you doing this? Like, even though you know they can come and fuck with you anytime that they want, what keeps you
Yep.
doing this? I mean, obviously
Wow.
there's money involved, but there's got to be a love of doing it, something, a
Yeah,
passion for it.
well, it's not a money thing for me. I've never been money motivated. If somebody weighs a bunch of money in my face, I usually go the other way because, you make bad decisions like that.
Yeah.
And I live a very, very simple life. I mean, I'm literally camping out in the middle of the woods when I've got a 1,200 square foot house in the front.
Right.
You know what I mean? So to be that dedicated to sleep next to your plants, I guess you got to have a love for it. And I think is the majority of it is I've had so many sacrifices in my personal life over it.
Yeah.
I've lost, you know, for your family to go through a police raid is horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Having
I
guns
know. I've
pointed
been
at
there.
them and shit.
I got
And
a
then
whole
to have
video on
that,
it.
yeah, and if you have that happen 6 or 7 times, there's no family that could be strong through that. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, that's
definitely taken its toll on my life. I've
definitely
paid the price.
tough.
You know,
Wow, that's just heavy. You know what I mean? To carry and shit,
yeah.
and then they
And I
can
think
come back anytime they want.
they can
And
absolutely. They
it's
came
like it's
back
not
every
like you
year.
can move your house or your land anywhere.
Right,
Like, it's already
right.
happened there in that spot, and you continually
That's
stay
right.
there, and you're basically saying fuck you. I'm gonna do what I want to do within the law, of course, but
Right.
they keep messing with you. When's the last time they messed with you?
Oh, it's been about 9 years ago now.
Okay. So
When
they
we
sort
first
of
had the
kind of
medical card
forgot about
system,
you.
well, what had happened is they were coming here every year, and I literally was on a first name basis with everybody that was coming here. The state police trooper that was coming here all the time, I won't mention him by name, but we would sit in the front yard and bullshit like friends while they were conducting the raid,
Wow.
literally. Nobody was watching us. It was just him and me hanging out talking. And he finally, after about the third or fourth year, he clued me in on some shit. He says, Travis, do you know why we come here every year? And I said, no, Scott, please tell me. And he says, well, he points to the truck and the trailer out front because they got a big trailer that they're putting all the weed in. And he says, well, part of the reason that we're here is random. And he points to the helicopter above. And then he just kind of lets that sink in for a minute. And he says, and part of the reason we're here is not random. And then he points over to that truck. And he says, what do you see in that truck over there? Because you seem like a pretty observant man, and I think you're going to piece this together in a few minutes. And I said, well, I see a shitty Ford Explorer, and he chuckled. And I said, I see it's hauling a trailer full of pot plants. He says, yeah. He says, you got about 6 scrawny little plants in there. Obviously, you visited somebody before you came here. And he goes, yeah, yeah. He says, you're right. We did visit somebody before we come here. He
Oh.
says, now think about that. He says, who do you think we could have visited before we come here?
Oh, somebody's like
Yeah,
they're throwing
yeah.
shade your way so that the
He was,
shade is not on
no,
them. No?
no, what it was is a buddy of mine called me up and he says, oh man, my grow with my buddy got busted. We're trying to start over. Can you help me out? Sure, come on over. I gave him 2 5-gallon buckets full of clones. There was probably 100 clones in there. They were in
Right.
water. And he brought these clones back to his place, and every single one of them took off. So he had the best genetics out there, and he filled up both gardens that had got raided, and I guess they got raided again. So his way of getting out of that was, well, I'm going to show you where a bigger garden is, but I don't know the address. And they said, well, that's fine. You just
We
point
just
us in
need
the
an
general
area.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just point us in the general direction and we'll fly a helicopter over. Because in a helicopter, we don't need consent. We don't need a warrant. You know, it's out in plain view. And it's a federal helicopter, so there's no state statute saying that it's legal because it's a federal helicopter that's spotting it. And that's exactly what they did. They would fly the helicopter over my place every year so that they don't need a warrant. And they had a tip from a dude that I was, helping build a business. I didn't get anything from the business. He was just my friend. He
Right.
got fucked over. I was trying to help him out, and that's how he repaid me. He narked me out to the cops.
Well, that's what I meant. I meant like somebody dimed
Yeah.
you out so that
Yep.
they get
That's
lesser charges or whatever. Point the
Yep.
direction.
So this lieutenant, he told me, he says, and mind you, he's in charge of what they called Omni or Mantis, which was their drug intervention team. And he flat out told me, he says, one of your friends is going to disappear off the map. He says, and that's the not random part. That's why we're here, because one of your friends is going to disappear and go away. And he pointed to the plants that were in the back of the truck there. I'm like, well, that says it all. One of my friends got raided, so we'll just see who doesn't call me anymore. And sure enough, one friend that I gave that clones to didn't call me anymore. And like 2 years later, I caught up with him, and he's like, man, how come you don't fuck with me anymore? And I'm like, dude, you ratted me out to the cops. Why would I fucking do anything for you? And he didn't have nothing to say in defense. You know what I mean? He was just stunned, like, how'd you know that? So Lieutenant Moore came
Caught
out, and he says,
red-handed.
yeah, this lieutenant comes out, and he says, we come here every year because we can go to one place, fill up that whole fucking trailer, and take a really pretty picture for the paper. He says, that's why we come here every year, Travis. He says, now, we operate from August 1st to August 15th. He says, next year, you keep your shit covered up. He says, you make sure during that time you're in your garden, and if you hear a helicopter come over, you drop those tarps. He says, and it'll be our last visit. And I'm like, wow, thanks. You fucked me 4 or 5 years in a row, and now all of a sudden we're buddies, and you're going to tell me that. So I did that for the next 2 years. I literally lived in the garden, and every time a helicopter came around, I had a tarp system that I would pull one rope, and all the tarps would fall and cover the garden like in it immediately. It was
Wow.
pretty cool, yeah. But it took a long time to roll them back up and get back to the way shit was. So I dodged them for like 2 years, and then after that, I just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna do what I want to do."
Right. So I
And the
mean, but
cops came out, and they raided me, and they took a whole bunch of shit. They took like $4,500 worth of tools and lawn equipment and shit,
wow.
and it was fucked up. And then Internal Affairs knocked on my door. They said, "Travis, can we talk for a few minutes?" And I'm like, "Hell no."
What do you want to talk about?
Right, right. I don't want to talk about nobody. No, I don't want to talk. And they're like, no, 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 no. It ain't like that. I said, we just want to chat with you a little bit. We know that, you had the police here recently, and you had some unfortunate things happen, and we want to help you out. I said, hey, you want to help me out? That's great. But I'm going to tell you right now, I live in this town. I got kids in this town. I ain't moving from this town, so don't ever ask me to say anything about anybody, because that ain't me.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, 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 not like that. We don't want you to rat at anybody. I said, well, what do you want from me then? You know what I mean? Get to the point. And they're like, well, a cop came to your house by the name of Luke Davis. I said, yeah.
Oh, dropping names.
Yeah. And he said, I can drop that name. And he said, and he took a whole bunch of stuff from you, yeah? I said, well, can you write down on this paper everything he took from you and, maybe a brief description of it? So for like the next 2 days, I thought of everything that motherfucker picked up, and I wrote it down. And I had receipts for everything. You know what I mean? I had a job at the time, so
Yeah.
I made sure I kept the receipts so they couldn't say that it was proceeds from my weed business.
Yeah.
And they just took the shit anyway. So the receipts, I didn't have to show them to anybody. I just had to list what it was. And I
Right.
didn't even have to prove that I had bought it legitimately. They didn't care. What had happened is they ended up telling me, well, we're going to reduce your 9 felonies that you got the other day down to 2 lesser charges,
Ooh.
non-felonies. And I'm like, sweet. I said, what do I got to do? And they said, nothing. I said, what do you mean, nothing? They said, just don't contest the evidence. I said, what evidence? They said, all the shit that cop stole from you. That's evidence in our case now. They said, all you got to do to get two lesser charges is don't ask for it back. Because if you ask for it back, it's going to complicate our case. And we just want to fry this motherfucker and move on.
But that don't make
So I'm
sense.
sure it does.
How does that explain that one? I'm lost.
If
Like, you know,
I if
he's
if I would
they
have
have
went to court,
evidence. They
yes,
have
they
evidence
know
against the
this
cop.
cop's stealing from me. Yep.
Right. But if you don't give a statement and say, "Hey,
No, no, no.
he
That's
stole
I didn't
this,"
have to give a statement. All I had to do it was already part of his police report that he took that stuff,
right.
and the
But you're
stuff was
writing
not
down
in
what,
police. Right, and I'm writing down a comparable list to theirs by memory. So they can pretty much go through the list and say, "Oh, look, half of this stuff isn't even on there.
right.
Half of this stuff is at his personal house." Now, if I was to stand up in court and to get another judge to intervene, and if I was to convince that other judge to return my property to me because it was stolen illegally, it literally could be 3 or 4 years before I get a result from that. And they didn't want their case tied up 5 or 6 years
Right.
because of me doing that.
They just wanted a
Right.
conviction.
Yeah, I'm just a small fish. They wanted to go after the dirty cop.
I see.
You know, they can always burn me for future drug sales. You know, because they know I'm gonna, they know I'm gonna continue to do what I'm doing. So, and
That's
that's the way
funny.
they played it. Now
But,
I'll
you
tell you
know,
one grudge I do have with the police department. You know, aside from all the ripoffs and shit, is my mom. She died at a very young age. She was 51 years old,
mm, sorry to
and
hear that.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't have very much time with my mom. I didn't meet her until I was like 18.
Hmm.
So, I had a few years with her and then she was gone. And unfortunately, a close family member of hers down in Texas turned her into the marshals after she got her hands on my mom's money because my mom got a settlement for like an accident or some shit, and she also got an
Right.
SSI settlement at the same time.
Uh,
And she had a good size amount of money for the first time in her life. And this aunt took it because her name was on the bank account, and she
uh,
called the marshals and had her turned in so she could keep the money herself. And
wow.
when she got extradited back here to Michigan, the I guess Detectives Narcotics Bureau was trying to do everything they could to figure out what I was up to. So they pulled my mom in there out of custody, and they said they told my mom that the reason she got extradited to Michigan is because I turned her in.
Oh, wow.
So for like the last 2 years of my mom's life, she wouldn't speak to me.
Wow.
But she never said a word to the cops about me. She didn't say shit to them. She didn't tell them about anything I was doing.
Hmm.
But she didn't have anything to do with me until, right up before her death.
What
So
about
I
this
still have
aunt?
a grudge with those motherfuckers, you know.
What about this
The
aunt?
aunt, the aunt died shortly after that. You know what I mean? She totally got what she deserved. She
Wow.
lost her entire family fortune. All her kids turned into crackheads and whores. And,
Damn it.
her family was just completely in ruin.
Karma, man. Karma comes
Yeah.
around and
Oh yeah.
shit. You know what I mean?
Well, all that greed ate them up. They were greedy, shitty people, and it devoured them. They deserved it.
Wow.
That was Aunt Billy.
Billy.
Aunt Billy. She wasn't really related to us, but she did a lot of shit to help my mom out.
Right.
She knew she was a fugitive, and she gave her a job and under the table and shit, so she wouldn't get caught up in nothing.
Wow.
Helped her get some fake IDs, shit, shit like that.
Wow. Well, that's very interesting, man. It's like you lead a very interesting life, man.
Every day is an
Absolutely.
adventure, and I never know if tomorrow will come. So I live every day as it's my last, because it could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I
Absolutely.
could have some people break in tonight and kill me, or I could have the cops kill me, or
Oh,
drug
jeez.
drug deal go
I
bad. You know what I
I
mean?
pray that
Could
never
be anything.
happens, brother. You're a good dude. You're a good
Yeah.
friend. I appreciate you, brother. I'm glad I met you. You
Oh, I
know,
value you guys' time too. You guys are great.
yeah, we all play together a lot. You know, we got a bunch of dudes. We got a good crew and some good
Fuck yeah,
people
we
in
do.
there.
Yep.
And yeah, we all get along. Love you guys for real.
Definitely a positive part to my hectic life. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving us a piece of your life. You know, I try to give
Yeah,
people
no
a piece of
problem.
mine too, you know, and this is what my channel's all about. It's all over the place, you know, with different things, but you know, try to share just a little bit, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your part. And
Oh, thanks, man.
but we'll do this again soon.
Thanks. I appreciate your time. It's been
All
great
right,
talking.
brother. All right, like and subscribe, bitches.